It's down in the den, so go tell a friend. The best podcast on earth's about to begin. We got jokes and news and movie reviews. After Dark NC-17 with the crew. Interviews with the best artists around. So like, comment, subscribe. The show's starting right now. Let's go. Like, comment, subscribe. The show's starting right now. So like, comment, subscribe. The show's starting right now. Let's go. Like, comment, subscribe. The show's starting right now.
Welcome back to Down in the Den. It's your host, Mars, a.k.a. Marlon Beardo, the Bearded Weirdo, and we are back with another stellar episode of your favorite podcast for creatives all across the globe. And today, I am excited. This is a true friend of the Den. He is a true friend of Mars Media in general. He's been featured on Politicking as Usual, Down in the Den After Dark, and of course, the mothership Down in the Den. He is a political analyst, an author, a podcaster, and a fantastic gentleman, and he is back on the final season of Down in the Den. We could not end this season or end this series without having Cam come in. I want to give a warm Down in the Den welcome to Cameron Cowan. Cam, how you doing, brother? Welcome back to the Den. How have things been?
I'm doing really well. I can't believe this is your last season of Down in the Den. When I saw the announcement, I was awestruck. So I'm already excited to see what you're going to be up to next, but I don't also want to spoil the discussion we're going to have this evening. But I'm already excited to see what you're going to do next. So
absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. You know, it's been a 6-year journey, and you've been there since the start. And you know, the Mars Media isn't going anywhere. And you know, we just got some bigger and better things in store. I wouldn't say better, but bigger things, newer things. But this is always going to be home for me. And you know, maybe we'll bring it back like King of the Hill in a few years. You know.
Yeah, no. Well, whatever you end up doing, you know, we'd always love to have you on the Soupcast Podcast Network, which is a new thing that I'm a part of and running, and all this sort of thing. So that's always there, ready when you want it.
Yes, sir. Well, like I said, we have some bright things, and I can't wait to collaborate even more. But let's get into it. And so first,
well, this is not politicking as usual, so we're going to talk about fun stuff tonight, right?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about. I mean, politics are fun to some people. We are going to be talking about a little bit of politics because it's effing crazy right now. And the last time we had a political conversation on Politicking as Usual, everything we said came to pass. If you guys want to check that episode out, you would think it was recorded yesterday, but it was actually recorded prior the election. And every single thing we came is one of the highest rated episodes of Politicking as Usual. And like I said, you would think it was recorded yesterday and not sometime in October 2024. It is it's as scary as I thought it would be when it came out. It might be even scarier right now. But so before we get into politics, let's talk about some fun stuff. You've got a new podcast out, the Living Joke Podcast. Tell us a little bit about that and how that came about.
Yeah, it's the Living Joke is a it's kind of that morning zoo style of show. Back in the old days when we did not have smartphones, and when you got in the car, you either had to put a CD into the tape player to listen to that, or you had to turn on this old thing called the radio, you know, sort of thing. So it's in that style of, like, you know, morning zoo, 3 guys talking about whatever. There is a soundboard. We do use it. But we're not just talking about, you know, football and all that, because none of us are into sports. So we're the morning zoo show for the nerd crowd. So we talk about gaming. We do video reacts. We talk about movie and pop culture stuff. We also sometimes talk about the world around us. And just, you know, kind of social commentary. We did talk last week about Rajah Jackson beating the shit out of that guy.
Psycho Stu. Psycho Stu
Yeah,
over at
yeah.
Knott's Pro
We
Wrestling.
did talk about that. That short's done very well on YouTube and on TikTok. But we did talk about that. That's about the closest we've gotten to sports. But yeah, it's gaming, it's nerd culture, it's video reactions. And I think the most fun part about it is I get to do it with two of my buddies, Will and Connor. And they've never really done podcasting or content creation before. So it's been a little bit of a journey and a process of becoming for them as well, which is fun. But it's been really good. We've had a lot of fun. We've had some great moments. I may be single-handedly responsible for the French pickpocket story going viral.
Sacre bleu.
Yeah, so Olympics, the French police had to stop American tourists, or asked American tourists to stop beating up pickpockets in Paris. Paris has a terrible pickpocketing problem. It's well known. Everyone just lives with it and or defends against it. When I was in Paris in 2015, I had a special bag with a non-tear strap because I knew this was a problem. I managed to get through the whole trip without being pickpocketed. But the pickpockets were trying to pick on the American tourists, and the Americans just started beating the crap out of them. Like this, like the pickpockets just getting wasted by American tourists. And I told this story on The Living Joke, and that one short has been viewed across TikTok and YouTube 60,000 times. I've seen it elsewhere on social media, and I'm like, we may be low-key responsible for this story being told. So we talk about stuff like that, little anecdotes, all this type of thing. We do a lot of like gameplay reactions. We talked about Battlefield 6. So yeah, so it's, I would say if you're not, if you're a super nerd, it's probably going to be a little bit boring and a little bit mainstream for you. But if you're like, nerd adjacent sort of thing, or on the nerdy side of the spectrum, this is the show for you. Will and Connor are so much fun. I'm usually playing referee more than talking about It's only by accident that our first viral video is me talking, and I wish it were one of them and not me. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's very light. The camera drill can be very heavy sometimes. The Living Joke is very light. It's a lot of fun. It's about an hour, and it's one of the best hours of the week. Take us to work with you, sort of thing. So if you're in the Cameron Journal verse, you can listen to the News Hour on Mondays, the Living Joke on Wednesdays, and interviews in between. So we got you covered.
It's definitely something we need. There's so much darkness going around the globe right now. We need as much lightness, lightheartedness. And my ex-wife, she went to Paris for her school graduation, and one of her friends got pickpocketed. So, hearing that story brings it around full circle. They got to realize one thing about Americans, we're not the number one in everything as we like to believe. But one thing Americans are going to do, we're going to fight. We're going to bring that unadulterated violence every opportunity we have. So,
yeah.
Parisians out there, please leave us be. We throw hands.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And the thing I love the most in the comments on that TikTok video is people are kind of like, I don't care about the money. I'm not waiting at the DMV 2 hours to get a new driver's license. That's the real problem. Like, I'm not doing that.
Exactly.
You can have the money. Like, that's fine. I'm not going to get a new ID. That's not going to be a thing. So, yeah, it's quite a lot of fun. But yeah, The Living Joke is a great podcast. We're doing episode 10, recording it tomorrow, on Wednesday, September 3rd. So it might already be out by the time people hear this. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. Sometimes we get into, more, sometimes a little bit more serious stuff, but it's usually stuff that is affecting us every day. Whereas my stuff is all very, high-minded and politics and blah, 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 and all this type of thing. The Living Joke is much more down to earth, and it's really where people live. Which makes it, very, very unique. And the wonderful thing is Will and Connor have very different perspectives than I do. They're both from a small town in upstate New York called New Lebanon. They are politically more conservative than I am, which sometimes makes things interesting.
Always.
Yeah. And so, and I think they're definitely probably a little bit more on board with the present regime than maybe some of the rest of us are. So that makes even some of the light stories a little bit more interesting, but just a very different, a different sort of thing, because I come from a different side of the country. I come from a whole different world, a whole different perspective, and they really kind of stand in contrast to that. So that makes it interesting. And also, they're much bigger gamers than I are. I think we had a funny anecdote last week where I always joke, I'm like, I'm not really a gamer. I didn't even really start playing video games seriously till like 2018 when I bought a PS4 for the first time. And I had done some PC gaming growing up, but I was busy. I was working in the state senate. I was doing Denver Fashion Week. I was working in nightlife. I was getting 2 degrees by the time I was 23. I didn't have all this downtime, whereas they had the opposite. They had tons of downtime, lots of free time, and they've really devoted their lives. I mean, the number of stuff that like Will alone has played, I'm convinced he's played everything. Like, he knows about it. Like, he's just played everything. And so he'll come out of pocket and be like, oh yeah, we should play this one really weird game I played one, like, and I just cannot relate at all. And so that's kind of very different. So I kind of bring a different sort of flavor to that conversation. And and then movies, we all do love a great movie, we love a great TV show. So those are always great conversations. And we have lots of, kind of interesting insight about that. Will watched The Matrix for the first time a couple weeks ago. And
I'm so jealous. I would love to be able to see that for the first time right now today.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because he's like, so why was none of the cool sci-fi shit like in the trailer? Why does no one ever talk about that stuff? If I knew that, I would have actually watched this like 10 years ago. I thought it was just another boring action movie. And I'm kind of like, well, to be honest, that's kind of not the focus. It's on screen for maybe 10 minutes. Like, that's, that's not necessarily, but it's always, but it's that sort of back and forth of being like, oh, so that's what would have gotten you it, like, that's how you perceived it.
That's the hook, line, and sinker that would have reeled you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and I think that's probably the interesting thing is different things appeal to each of the three of us for different reasons, and I think one of the cool things about our dynamic is, they're very similar. I tend to have the more refined, cultured sort of taste. They tend not to, but it makes for a great contrast and dynamism sort of thing. And I didn't grow up steeped in the nerd culture like they did. I mean, they've been OG gamers, MCU people. This has been all a part of, and they're also 5 years younger than I am, which is a unique sort of thing. So this has been a part of their lives in a way it was never really a part of mine.
Right.
I think I've only ever seen like Black Panther. Like, I've barely seen any MCU movies. I didn't even buy a PlayStation till like 2017. That's actually, weirdly enough, how I met Will. Weirdly enough, we actually met on PSN in an Overwatch round randomly. And it's, which people are kind of like, oh, how did you guys meet? And we're like, on a video game. Wait, don't you guys all live together? Yeah, we've been friends for this whole time. Like, sort of like, we've been friends through relationships, breakups, sobriety journeys. Like, yeah, like, it's, so it's been a fun journey. But yeah, so I bring a very different flavor to that whole conversation. But it's a lot of fun. It's super interesting. I love watching them open up. It's really unleashed Will's creativity. He has tons of video ideas, tons of things he wants to do. We're about to do this really fun video that I'm not going to spoil, but as with League of Legends, and the production has gotten out of control. I'll just say it. The production's gotten out of control. There's now costumes, there's masks. Temu is supplying everything for this shoot. Like, it's become a whole thing. But
shout out to Temu.
Yeah, shout out to Temu for it's the costume supplied by Temu. But it's really unleashed his creativity, and I love seeing that. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and especially, in the moments when we can kind of get Connor to open up a little bit more and talk about some of the things he's interested in, his clips always do really well. Like, it's just kind of funny. Like, he doesn't always say a whole lot, but when he does, it's a banger. So, yeah. So it's really cool. And I would just encourage everyone to head on over and subscribe to livingjoke.substack.com. and subscribe and get the podcast every week. It airs live on Wednesdays. It goes out on Substack on Thursdays, and there's also additional content including gaming stuff. I'm currently sitting on a compilation of Fortnite eliminations, some of my best Fortnite eliminations. I recently was in the Blitz rally round, and I won and killed like 24 people. So I actually have all those eliminations, and I'm going to cut them together into a super cut of elims. But if that, that sort of content is going to be on there. And then for if you want to watch it on YouTube, right now we're piggybacking off the Cameron Journal because starting a new YouTube channel is a lot of work.
That's a pain.
But if you're if you're on YouTube, just go to youtube.com/@Cameron Journal. It's a playlist on the front page of the channel. So just look for The Living Joke or just Google search. It comes right up. And then if you're a super gamer and you're on Rumble, The Living Joke channel is on Rumble. So all of that's available. And Will loves to post stuff on Instagram, so we're very active on Instagram, TLJ_joke. And if you don't want to write all that down or get lost, the only one you have to remember is the Substack, thelivingjoke.substack.com. All the links are there. I don't stream gaming a lot because I don't game that much, but they do. In fact, as I'm sitting here recording this, Connor's upstairs streaming. So if you go to the Substack, there's also links to our Rumble channel and to their Twitch streaming channels, which is really cool. So, and you can watch, Connor plays a ton of World of Warcraft, ton of WoW. So you can definitely check out Connor playing WoW. Will play all sorts of stuff. So go ahead and do that. And I do have a couple gaming streams planned. I am going to play all the TFOs and Star Trek Online here soon. And there was another one I came up with. I wrote it down somewhere. I have a couple streams coming up myself that I'm going to do, but I have a whole other show to do, so I don't have time to do all that. But so it's a lot of fun, and I would just encourage people to come by and watch.
Well, I am super excited for this new venture, leaning into the absurdity of the current moment of where we're at in the planet. Being able to have that humor and just relax and escape into another digital universe is something I think is super important right now. I know friends that have literally, life has been saved by the relationships that they've built on Halo or GoldenEye or whatever it may be. Obviously I'm aging myself when I say GoldenEye. There's probably some kids at home saying, "What's a Nintendo 64, Dad?" And his dad's got a tear thinking about that startup screen, the good old days, and I can't wait to collaborate with you guys. Like I said, that is definitely my wheelhouse. But taking the jokes aside, of course, we can't have the great political mind that you are on the show without digging into some of the holy shit chaos that has been going on the planet. If I was living in any other country right now, America would be my favorite reality show. Forget Love and Hip Hop.
America season 249 is hot.
It's crazy. There might be some clones, some surprise deaths. Who knows what's going on? From your perspective, how has this return to presidency just reshaped the political landscape in America? Because this is, in my opinion, and obviously you'll be far more versed than I am. I've never seen anything like this. I'm 44 years old with a birthday coming up in 28 days. And, I've been fairly involved. I wasn't one of those guys that look, I don't vote. I voted in every election that I could. And there's always been, in my opinion, like a balance. The Democrats are going to be a lot more liberal with certain things, but we're going to have a good economy. Going to be pretty quiet. The news is going to be pretty quiet, unless you're talking about Bill Clinton. And then with the Republicans, it's going to be a little chaos, maybe a war. We're going to run up the deficit, but it always seems to be a balance. Now it feels like we're in an authoritarian, regime. It's everything we said it would be. But what is your perspective so far? What are we, 7 months into this thing, 9 months into this thing? What is your perspective?
Yeah, we're quickly coming up on month 8. It feels like we're on year 3. But I remind everyone we haven't even had a whole year of these folks, even though it already feels like we're on year 3. I think the best way to surmise it is everything Kamala Harris said would happen has already happened. And they've been in office for 8 months. I have a website that tracks Project 2025 that I put on the Cameron Joel News Hour, airing Mondays at 7. And they've already completed 55%. They've been in office 8 months.
Yeah.
Like, it's already and I laugh because all of my MAGA people, Lester, were kind of like, no, he denounced it. He got the guy fired. Quit talking about it. And I think one of the biggest tactical mistakes the Democrats did was stop talking about it, because one, it was going places and and people didn't like it, and it was polling incredibly well. And for two, they didn't keep talking about it because of all those things. And the reality is, the minute the election was over, there were 2025 people on the transition team. There are Project 2025 people in the cabinet. They're following it. You can literally have a tab open with the Project 2025 tracker and what the Trump administration has done, and it's 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. And so when it comes to, I mean, I've said openly, Trump is consolidating power and we are moving to an authoritarian regime. It will probably end up being, and this is probably the most dangerous part, is it's going to end up being what I kind of call a soft authoritarianism, which is closer to Russia, maybe, where they still have elections. They even still have a constitution. They still have courts, all this type of thing. But Vladimir Putin is so consolidated power that he's running the whole show. China has a similar system with Xi Jinping. He's the only leader since Mao to get the title of great leader. And China's is a little harder, sort of thing. Their society is a little bit more structured, sort of thing. But yeah, that's kind of the way the world is trending. I remember, I think it was the summer of 23, there was a lot of discourse about sort of the global rise of authoritarianism. And in 2024, you had almost every major democracy in the world have elections kind of all at once. It just sort of happened that way. We did, the Brits, everyone was having elections, sort of thing. And there was a visible global shift to the right. A lot of that was global inflation. People really didn't like the price of stuff going up, and they kind of voted everybody out. Unfortunately, the people they voted in, with a handful of exceptions, tended to be a lot more far right than the old guard. France narrowly avoided that fate. Macron literally shacked up with the communists to get a narrow majority to maintain a working majority in French parliament. He had to really go begging to the far left. Otherwise, you would have ended up in this awkward situation where Macron was president and then had Marine Le Pen and company in parliament, and they would have ended up calling new elections and getting rid of him. And so they had to kind of narrowly defeat that. That's the advantage of a parliamentary system. With no such option here in America. And so you end up with this terrible situation. There was a definitely visible rightward turn left, and people talked about, even with Orban in Hungary, the way things happened with Erdogan in Turkey, and he's kind of the OG of all this. There's just been a visible shift rightward. I think probably the one thing we're not talking about in American politics enough is how the pandemic changed politics. And unfortunately, because of the timing of it all, people don't remember Trump for the pandemic. They remember Joe Biden, the Democrats. Because remember, Joe Biden takes office January 20th of 2021, right before the year anniversary of the pandemic. Now, people forget in 2020 that the reason why the pandemic got as bad as it did was Trump's failure to address it, which honestly at the time was the reason he lost. But it's been 5 years. Right. People's memories are short and unreliable. And so the lockdowns, the loss of businesses, all this type of thing, that unfortunately has gotten pinned on the Democrats. I also think the pandemic has basically broken the political brains of Americans. And I don't think we talk about that enough. The pandemic changed everything. It changed our spending habits, it
Yeah.
changed where we live, and I think most importantly, it changed a lot of people's political opinions on a lot of stuff. And I think it also, in a weird way, might have been the death knell of the Western liberal global consensus. And I think there's now a big backlash against people, parties, systems, and politics that viewed the actions of the pandemic as being good, positive, and necessary. I don't think people liked it. I don't think they enjoyed it. I said at the time, people are not used to having this much government in their everyday lives. We don't have that in this country the way they do in Europe or Asia. And I think people really, even if they would never tell it to a pollster, that's what they were really voting against, was we do not want people in power who are going to do that again for the next crisis. Hence why Trump was able to get back in. That being said, the Republicans probably could have run a ham sandwich, and given what the Democrats did with Biden dropping out of the race in June, they could have run a ham sandwich and probably have won. In fact, I think I said on your show, I think
Verbatim.
we're screwed. Yeah, like I think
Verbatim,
we're screwed,
yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
And we both agreed that she didn't have a chance. She had the shortest. Usually, people run their election 2 years out.
Yeah.
She had 120 days or 107 days, something like that.
107 days, yeah. No, I mean, and I think one of the things that she doesn't get enough credit for is saving congressional Democrats nationwide. I think it would have, I think if Biden had continued based upon how things were going, I think Biden would have lost. I think congressional Democrats would have gotten creamed. I think it would have been a blowout. I think Trump would have had the mandate from heaven, and that would have probably emboldened action. I think Kamala Harris made the loss not that bad. And people kind of forget, she only lost Wisconsin by 9,000 votes. And there are some questions about the vote tallies. There's
going to get there.
lawsuit in upstate New York where counties that voted for Joe Biden in 2020 mysteriously had no Kamala Harris votes in 2024, as if everyone suddenly became Republican in 4 years, sort of thing. Like, no, not a single little old lady. No. And that's winding its way to the courts. I'll be very interested to see what happens. Also, given that a lot of Western North Carolina had to vote by Starlink because the hurricane happened 3 weeks before an election, I think there's also some questions about that as well. I'm not
major questions.
Yes, and I'm not advising people to go down the Trump post 2020 stolen election conspiracy theory thing yet. I want to see how these legal cases kind of unfold, what evidence comes out, to see if there's a there. There may be, but we don't know anything yet, so let's not go crazy with it. But there's definitely some, but she did not, and she also, it was not a land sweeping win. Even Trump kind of dropped the whole mandate rhetoric after about a month, because they've seen the polling numbers as well. They won by 1.5 percentage points, which, not that it matters in this moment when DC is being occupied, when illegal immigrants are being rounded up, and people are being sent to El Salvador against the law, the Constitution, and human decency. It does not matter. In a weird way, I think Kamala Harris saved the Democrats. Once again, a Black woman saves the Democrats. It's a tale as old as time.
As old as time. From Stacey Abrams to Kamala Harris to sisters holding it down.
And that's, I think that, that she doesn't really get enough credit for all of that, and also for putting together a campaign, picking her running mate, doing a convention, all of it in 107 days, and she loses by 1.5 points nationally. That, again, doesn't matter because Trump's tearing the country apart, but that she probably lost by less than Biden would have, most likely.
100%. I think the Democrats did the best thing they could do in a rotten situation, because
Yeah.
Biden wasn't going to win. Biden was physically just withering away in front of us. It was hard. Ironically, how Donald is withering away in front of us and rotting from the inside, resembling Emperor Palpatine every single day. But
And
yeah,
people forget there were conversations going on in November, October of 23 about how do we get Biden not to run. Like the enthusiasm for Biden in his own party was in the basement.
yeah,
Most of
he
us
was.
didn't want him the first time. We just went along with it. We were not in the mood for a run in 24. And so I think a lot of donors and people, George Clooney gets a lot of flack for doing the letter, in the Los Angeles Times about Biden needs to step aside and all this sort of thing. But I think that's where a lot of donors were at as well by the June debate was, oh my God, he's not together. And we knew it, like we knew it, we know it, and now we have evidence of it. But here's the other thing, and I think here's what really killed it. The polling number was starting to look tragic. I mean, tragic. And I mean, at one point in the summer after the debate, Biden was behind Trump by 12.
Yeah.
That's campaign ending, and ultimately was. And so I think Kamala Harris came from behind and was just a breath. I think if her and Waltz had stayed, not listened to the consultants, and stayed with the narrative of the first 30 days, the first 30 days were magical. They had Trump and company on the run.
Ropes. Yeah,
Trump was at first he was afraid, he was petrified. Like, I mean, they had him, and then the consultants came in and they neutered the campaign. And we talked about that in October, about what the energy shift that happened after the convention and how it was not good, and that's why we were not going to win, and we were right. But I mean, I think for me, the part I'm most worried about as Trump consolidates power, and that's what he's doing right now. Make no mistake, everybody, that's what he's doing right now. As Trump consolidates power and all this sort of thing, a lot of people made fun of me in November when I said, as a journalist, my job just got a lot more dangerous, And I always had known in the back of my head that this job came with a certain amount of danger. But now that's real and here.
It's a reality.
And is happening. It's a reality. And as Trump consolidates power in a real way, right now he's just suing networks he doesn't like. I wonder, given we're only 8 months in, how long is it before it goes one step further and one step further and one step further? And that's kind of the problem with these regimes. Putin did not create the Russia of today when he gets into power in 2000, when Boris Yeltsin dies. It took him years to create the stranglehold he has in power. He had to kill a lot of oligarchs to get to where he is now, all this type of thing. I very much worry that it seems like it's already bad, but as the old Slavic joke goes, we thought we'd reached rock bottom and then there was a knock from below. I think this is kind of just the beginning. And I wonder, when is the arrest of journalists going to start? When we start talking about, occupying cities, are the people of the New York Times going to be allowed to go to work? So, I mean, those are the conversations we're at the cusp of having right now. And that I thought for a hot minute, maybe I had taken this all a little too seriously, and maybe I'd kind of lost it and was a little too worried and all this type of thing. And then about a month later, I'm like, nope. My reaction was exactly what it needed to be. Yes, I was spot on. I need to trust myself more. Because I had all my friends being like, oh, you need to calm down. Everything's going to be fine. It was fine the first time. And I'm kind of like, oh no, the vibe is very different now. Very,
completely different. He's on, and he said it before, he's on a retribution tour. And This is not about legacy. Nope. This is not about anything besides enriching himself and his family and revenge. And you're absolutely right. If you look at our November episode, our presidential election episode, everything, has come to pass, and I hate to be Negrodamus, not Nostradamus, but Negrodamus here.
Yeah.
I don't think we're far off. If this is 8 months in, I wouldn't be surprised if for December, people like yourself, journalists like yourself, journalists like myself, are getting subpoenas in the mail. Or, if you speak
Yeah.
against Trump, your Twitter, his buddy Elon, his on and off BFF Elon has all of our tweets. And he has all of our personal information.
And I've had a Twitter account since 2007, so they have a lot to go through. No, I know. Yes, I'm very, yes, I agree with you. I think, by the end of the year, as Trump consolidates power, that's, I don't think we're very much farther from subpoenas, court cases getting picked up in the street. And right now everyone thinks I'm a bit crazy for thinking that's possible and all this type of thing. And I'm kind of like, well, they just gave ICE $170 billion, and ICE answers to the White House and no one else. So that apparatus can be used essentially for whatever the Oval Office deems necessary.
His own personal, Gestapo force. And the crazy thing is, he's offering $50,000 signing bonuses for uneducated, no age limit. I thought about getting my old butt out there. Only $50,000,
right?
Sorry, Rodriguez, getting the ban.
Right.
It's very, very scary, and it doesn't stop there. I've said this. I believe the end game is a all-white, all-male run America. When they say "Make America Great Again," if you got a little melanin, a little brown, a lot of African Americans or foundational Black Americans feel we're safe because right now we're not safe. We're not safe at all. We're probably last on that list because they're trying to figure out a legal way, but we're not safe. We don't even have a home country to get shipped back to. So.
Well, they're about to send some poor fellow to Uganda for no reason. So it's not, it's not like they're gonna care sort of thing. I think the funny thing is how this is being perceived by the rest of the world. To your point, I have lots of I do a lot of business in Europe. I have a lot of friends in Europe. I know a guy who lives in Switzerland. Every time we talk, he asks me, "Well, when are you leaving? When are you coming here?" He's literally gone so far as to put me in touch with German companies looking for American-style PR and marketing to get me a job in Switzerland or Germany. I also happen to speak German, but to get me a job in Europe so that I could leave. It's like I have friends are absolutely kind of freaking out. I do have one friend. She worked in post-Soviet Kazakhstan, I believe. So she's kind of already lived under an authoritarian regime. And so she's a little bit more like, no, you can get through this. It's not always as bad as this sort of thing. But I have a lot of other friends, international people, who are frightened. They ain't coming here. They don't want to do much with us. And they're really, as far as they're concerned, I should have already left, sort of thing. Get out while the getting's good sort of thing. And that is, definitely, I think, something people aren't necessarily really thinking about. It's also interesting to watch global trade start to bypass the U.S., which, we've gone from the center of global trade to essentially being a node on the network as a self-inflicted wound. Now, I think part of that is because, and Marco Rubio mentioned this, and he's not wrong, it's expensive to be the global economic hegemon. It involves us importing a lot, not exporting very much, and running a lot of trade deficits, which incidentally also exports our inflation, which is a nice perk. But it does add up. And also the security guarantees to keep all of that going is one of the reasons why our military budget is $1 trillion and we don't have free healthcare in this country. And so I think we've kind of decided we're done paying for that privilege, but it's interesting to watch all these other countries kind of organize trade around us and without us. I kind of worry what the long-term implications of that economically are going to be, especially given demographically speaking, like every other developed country, our population will begin to shrink in 2040.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the boomers are a very large generation. The millennials are actually larger. Enough of them have died. We're actually larger now. But we're not young, and we didn't have a lot of kids. We're not having a lot of kids, and many of us are now.
I have 0.
Yeah,
44
I
years
have
old. 0.
none either. We're already down 2 just in this conversation. And millennials have not been, quite frankly, been able to afford having children. So Gen Z is a third of our size. Gen Alpha will probably be smaller. That's going to be a huge game changer moving forward. And so, as we are old men, 20, 25 years now, when we're firmly in grandpa territory, we're going to end up in a country that is losing population rapidly, is no longer the center of the global economy, and there may not necessarily be a huge incentive to do business here, because the one thing America has had is a deep consumer economy that will buy anything, sort of thing. That won't be true in about 15 years. And I wonder all of this kind of coming crashing together, I think will make for very interesting times in the 2040s and beyond. We won't see those chickens come home to roost for probably another 25 years, but as we're getting ready to retire and hit up, the golf course, that's, the long-term economics of that are going to be quite difficult as well. And it will all have started now. And I think that's probably what the history books will remember most about Trump, if there's anyone left around to write them, will remember most is that, that 2025 was the beginning of the end of American hegemony, and we chose to do it ourselves, sort of thing.
Self-inflicted, like you said.
Mostly because we were just tired of paying for it. It got too expensive. And we're a very practical country. Nice things are nice things until they become too much of a bother, and then we kind of dip. We're out. No, thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to pay for this. So
yeah,
I have
this is expensive. Yeah.
One final question. We've seen Gavin Newsom pop out of nowhere. In my opinion, one of the least popular governors, skyrocket just by giving a taste of Trump's own medicine. Yeah. We have, of course, the old regime of Democrats. They have no leader. They have no. It's a mess, on the left, and I can't act like it's not a mess. America's known to fight. Americans are known when they realize, holy crap. Well, they're also Americans are known to just sleep and not pay attention to things around the globe, not pay attention. And that's kind of how we're in this mess that we're in now. Is there anyone out there? Do you see anyone out there on the left? Because who knows if, I don't personally think, and, I don't wish death on anybody, but I don't think Trump will be around in 2028. He looks like the crypt keeper. But do you think there's anyone on the left that can help overcome this Trumpism? Because they often say when the cult leader dies, so does the cult. So if he doesn't run for 2028, if for some reason he doesn't survive, and it's J.D. Vance is the heir apparent, which he doesn't have the popularity nor the audience of, do we see any? We'll never be back pre-pandemic. That's a fact. We'll never be back to 2019 again. But can we get an area of normalcy where we have decency and we don't have National Guard running the street and we're not just randomly throwing the Constitution in the garbage disposal? Is there an opportunity, or is this the new reality?
No, I think this is the new reality. The Supreme Court has turned it into law. A president has immunity for all "quote unquote" official acts, and and they didn't define those official acts, right. And they didn't define those. So no, obviously, given what Trump is doing is rather unique to him. I think even J.D. Vance will probably follow the law more than Trump does. That's very specific to Trump the person. I quite frankly don't think JD Vance quite has the balls to do that sort of thing.
I agree.
Also, I think if JD Vance thinks he's automatically going to people are going to consolidate around him, I think he's a bit, delusional. I think he thinks if he gets the big GOP donors on board, it's going to be fait accompli in 28. I think he's a bit delusional. I
A
think
little Delulu.
yes, I think I think a lot of right now the poll came out that 73% of Republicans want Trump to run in 2028, despite it being unconstitutional. But who cares about that anymore? I don't see that support translating to anyone other than Trump. Let's not forget in 2024, Trump made pretty fast work of the GOP primary field. That didn't last for long. I think JD Vance is going to struggle. He thinks having the big GOP donors is going to be his ticket to success. He's probably going to be wrong about that. I think it's going to be a fight. As far as the left goes, unfortunately, I think Gavin Newsom's probably your best bet. I think here's the reality. Gavin Newsom has figured out something. Trump-style politics works. That's what people want. That's what they expect. It's the reality show. It's the drama. It's Love Island, but it's the people running your country sort of thing. He's figured out that's what works. That's what gets attention. That's what moves voters. I find that so abhorrent and reprehensible. It's not even funny. That's another conversation. But Gavin Newsom, bless his heart, has discovered that that's a way to garner a lot of attention. And now people are doing memes and they're doing, the hands resting on his shoulder like Trump, they did for Trump, all this sort of thing. Like he's discovered that's how you get political traction these days, is you have to get into the muck, into the mud, into the drama, and play it like a reality show. And honestly, I'm not surprised he's popular because that's what Democrats want right now. They want someone who's willing to get in there with Trump and the whole GOP machine and do all of that. I had several months of discussion, with different journalists about how to adapt and adopt to this media environment, especially in the online left. Our ecosystem is so much smaller than the right in the podcasting and the new media space. We are a third of what the right is.
Absolutely.
And I said, you know what? Most of the popular shows that they consider in the right-wing political ecosystem don't actually talk about politics. Most of them don't. Most of them dip into politics from time to time, but, talk about a bunch of other stuff sort of thing. And so that's, kind of one thing to consider. But I think, two, is they also participate in that sort of casual watch and view of reality. And I think one of the kind of important, problems a lot of us on the left have, and it's funny because I had a back and forth with Will from The Living Joke about this, is I think for a lot of people, this is all one giant joke. Like people, like on the left, that seems so horrifying to hear. We're like, no. There's vulnerable communities and people and things affected and policies and blah, blah. Like we're kind of like, oh God, no, this isn't funny. This is real life. This is a joke. Okay. President Trump was talking to Theo Vaughn. Okay. Theo Vaughn, everyone. That's where they're operating from. And I think for better or for worse, Gavin Newsom's figured this out. Yeah. And I joke because Will and I said the right needs to take politics more seriously and the left needs to start having fun with it. And I think that's what Gavin Newsom has figured out. He and his team have figured out politics is now a joke. No one takes it seriously. No one actually cares, but you can get their attention if you make it fun and get involved in the drama. Newsom has figured that out. I unfortunately think that will probably be politics moving forward. Now, I don't think Democrats are going to have National Guard occupying cities. They'll respect established processes and all this type of thing. I don't think we have anyone on the left who's eager to be an authoritarian the same way that Trump really wants to be Vladimir Putin. He wants to be that powerful.
Really wants to be.
Yeah, and I think Trump looks around and says, I'm the most powerful man on earth. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't seem like it because Trump doesn't understand that true power doesn't shout. It whispers very quietly in the background. And for most of this country, we've had that very waspy, understated, the real wealth is wearing a quiet polo and drives a classic Porsche, and they don't look rich. Trump looks rich. That's part of his appeal. He kind of has that hood mentality. Honestly, Donald Trump just missed going out of black. He'd be a wonderful black person if he'd aligned to the right vagina.
Oh,
Like,
we black people love Donald Trump for decades.
Of
For
course.
decades, he has golden sneakers. It's right up our alley.
It's the whole thing and that's, I think, the one thing that like Trump looks around the world and is like, it looks like they have more power than I do. And I'm like, no, that's because Russia's a gas station with a lousy military. They used to have a good military with a gas station. Now they're a gas station with a lousy military. They can't take a state the size of Virginia. It's like, everyone's like, what about Russian invasion? I'm like, Russia couldn't invade New Jersey. Like,
no, they would the East Orange.
Island. Like,
they would the East Orange would be a big problem.
Yeah, like it's like they can't. It's like Ukraine's on their border. They've taken 10 feet. They look more powerful. I think that bothers him a lot because and this has been his brand for decades. Okay, he wants to look like he's the most popular, like he's the wealthiest, even though he rarely is. He likes to have all the accoutrement and the visuals. And let's face it, people are shallow. They get into that. They love that stuff. All this type of thing. They don't care that he has 4 bankruptcies. They don't care that he has 54 felonies. All the stuff Democrats have tried to pin on him, no one actually cares about. Gavin Newsom, meanwhile, and his team have figured out how to play the game. And I think that's something Democrats don't understand. Politics is a game now. I find this deeply frustrating.
Yes.
Myself, like, I will say, should. As someone who has 2 degrees in political science and has spent years of my life studying this stuff and knows why this is and how it is and all the history and the principles behind this and how these things work, I find this deeply frustrating, but I can't deny its truth. And the truth is, politics now is a game. It's a game show. It's a joke. And Gavin Newsom has figured out how to message within that environment.
Yeah.
The rest of the Democratic Party doesn't have a clue. Zohran Mamdani is probably the next closest person who has any clue how to work in this political environment. But the rest of the National Democrats have no clue about any of this.
No clue.
And I think that's why Waltz and the whole calling the GOP weird thing worked. I think that's why the Kamala HQ TikTok account was so popular and everything. I think that's why all that stuff worked, is because it had no substance whatsoever, but it looked good on social media, sort of thing. That's the game now. That's the whole game.
Michelle Obama, she made a mistake when she said, when they go low, we go high. And the reality is when they go low, we need to go subterranean. Now once you get in power, then we can go back to your traditional, feeling. But it is a game show. It's like The Running Man. It's like an old 90s Arnold Schwarzenegger movie at this point. And, I wouldn't be surprised if 10 years from now they're battling in a steel cage match in front of the White House for the Constitution on a pole match. Brought to you by the
the advantage to that, and why that's always been viewed, like even like Idiocracy, all this type of thing, is those are the things people, especially the median voter, actually understand. And I think one of the problems, especially why like young men went to the right and a lot of other segments of the population have moved rightward. The right is very easy to understand. It has an entry level that's on the floor. The left is not that way at all. There's things to know. There's things to read. There's stuff to understand. There's a whole kind of journey you want to go on to. I very briefly, was talking to a full-on hotep on Facebook dating at one point, and I've never exited a conversation more quickly. When your pickup line is Grand Rising, I hit the door. Because I know where that's going. But
can I borrow your credit card? Is where it's going.
Exactly. Like it's like, I mean, honestly, I had a better time talking to this one girl. We have the same hair texture, and she messaged me, "What do you use on your hair?" That was a better conversation. Like sort of thing. And I'm like, yes, let's have that conversation. But yeah, I mean, this is all of this taken together is kind of where we're at now. And I even sometimes wonder, is my show too boring? Is it too high-minded? Is it too limiting to people? All this sort of thing. And I'm having a little bit of conversation within myself right now about what the future of the Cameron Journal is in this media environment. But the reality is, politics from now on, Trump has changed American politics. Politics from now on will be in the Trump style. It's going to be showy. It's going to be dramatic. It's going to be like a produced reality show. That's the new politics. The entire Democratic Party outside of Gavin Newsom does not understand that, to their detriment. And it's going to be quite, I think, difficult moving forward, because there's going to be a lot of us that aren't interested in that and want to go back to the old system. And I think the uncomfortable reality, we ain't going back. This is us now. So just like how they're going to try to send us back to Africa, but probably fail at it, like the first couple times they tried, we're stuck with this political reality now. And I would say I've known a lot of people that have left. I can't say I haven't thought about it. At this point, if I got a great opportunity in Germany, Austria, Czechia, Switzerland, I would strongly consider it. I would. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of me that wants to stay and fight. I think there's a future to fight for, sort of thing. But it's going to be a very difficult fight. I think a lot of people are going to get hurt along the way. But
you're absolutely right. I hear Belize is wonderful this time of year, and the cost of living is nowhere. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Belize is quite popular. Yeah, I know a guy there who owns a weed/nudist resort. Costa Rica is a popular destination. Yeah.
So, we'll see. So hopefully we'll be broadcasting from America this time next year, but you might see us in the Autobahn. Who knows? But Cam, brother, I could talk to you all day, man. Thank you so much for joining us again and coming on the final season. Please let people know exactly where they can find you on social media and anything that you have coming up next. Of course, the new episodes, but please let people know where they can find you. The floor is yours.
No, thank you so much. We didn't even get into it, but we did. I have a new book coming out, America's Lost Generation, on September 12th. It tells the story. 12th. Yes, it tells the story of millennials through the lens of what happened in Japan in 1991. The Japanese had a property crisis that left a whole generation economically bereft. Sound familiar? Well, you're welcome to read more. There's currently a series about the book at CameronJoel.com under Millennials, where I kind of took the best of the book and wrote some articles around it, which was really exciting. I also, I'm going to be putting some video stuff in the can because people don't read anymore and we have to also talk at them. So at Cameron Journal on TikTok, at Cameron Cowan on Instagram and Twitter, at Cameron Cowan on YouTube as well, are all places to go see and hear things. But my new book is coming out on September 12th, mentioning new things. Obviously, we talked about The Living Joke. Make sure to come listen to us on that. We're Wednesdays at 4 p.m. And then on social media, if you want all the links to everything and see and buy the book and all that fun stuff, CameronJournal.com is always your best place to go because it's all right there. And I have the news hour every Monday and 2 interviews a week. So subscribe on your favorite podcast app. I'm everywhere. I'm easy to find. So
just type in Cameron Journal on your Googles.
Yes, literally, and then everything comes right up. Website has more links. Your favorite platforms, I'm there. So we're all sorted and taken care of. So yeah, but no, I really have been enjoying. People have been subscribing to the newsletter that comes out every Saturday, which is really awesome. We didn't have one because it was the holiday and I was tired, but usually comes out every Saturday this week. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We have a lot of new people in the Cameron Journal ecosystem recently, so that's been fun. But yeah, come on by and. Great, interesting people, lots of fun political insights. And if that all gets a little too boring and you start to have a headache, that's what The Living Joke is for. Much less headache. And balance. And thank you so much, Sean, for being so supportive of the Cameron Journal all of these years. Of course. And for being so supportive of me and being helpful in this whole journey. I restarted the show in 2019. I knew very few people. I had an email list and a website that needed a new theme and had been updated in 3 years. And all through this 6 years, you have been so helpful in making the Cameron Journal what it is today and having a top 10 globally rated podcast and all this type of thing. So it's been such a privilege to come here for the final season of Down in the Den. And I'm so sad to see this show go because we've had so many good times. Our one discussion we had about Monique and Shannon Sharp, that was one of the best pieces of media I've ever done and participated in. We had so much fun.
It was a blast.
It was a blast. But I'm also excited to see what you're going to do next and what we'll do together. And it'll be great, wonderful, and amazing. But thank you so much for having me by.
Absolutely. Well, man, it almost made a tear drop down my man. Thank you so much. And like I said, it's more to come. These collaborations will not end. And new thing we're doing this season for the final season to show love to all of our guests, we're having giveaways. So the first person that puts Go Low in YouTube, Go Low, I'm going to DM you, not for anything gross. And I'm going to buy you a copy of Cam's new book that comes out on the 12th, and I'll get it right out to you. So that's what we're doing to show love to all of our guests and all of our friends of the Den that have been showing us love for the last 6 years. So can't wait to get the book. And once again, Go Low is the magic word. Type that in there, and I'll hit you up in the DM or something, and we'll get you a copy of that fine literature for those who like to read. You know, it's maybe 6 of us now, but you know, for the 6 of us that like to read, it's going to be some fantastic information in there. Brother, once again, I wish you nothing but success. We'll talk offline. I'll see you next week. And for guys, for tuning in for this episode, thank you so much for tuning in. You know how we end every episode. It's all about peace, love, unity, and respect, unless you're a Republican. And deuces, we're out.